Okay, guys, welcome again. This is chapter 5 or our series. Today we're going to talk about NAIA schools and the benefits that those NAIA schools give us. I want to thank our guests for coming and joining us today. I think I have a great staff to talk about with great coaches, so hopefully we'll get all our questions answered tonight. First, I want to introduce the guests. The first one we have is Coach Phil Sayas from Johnson & Wales down in Miami. We also have Coach Prince Bohr from Bruin Parker in Georgia. And then last but not least, Coach Peyton Chilwood from Warner University. So, well, welcome guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to help our memberships and our kids to understand a little bit more about NAIA. The first question I have is your opinion about FKK, what FKK does for their memberships and the kids. I know that you guys been in some of our staff, have met some of our staff, our coaching staff, also been to some of our events. So I wanted to hear a little bit about your opinion about what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong, and in which way we can make it better. So Prince, you want to start since you've been at pretty much every event we put together?
Yeah, I mean, you guys do a quality job, to be honest. I've pretty much been at every event for the past, whether coaching against FKK teams or for the past 4 or 5 years. I've been at every event. It's quality coaching, quality kids, and it seems that it doesn't matter what level team you guys, place them, at least attempt to place the ones that want to play. So that's big time. And you guys also don't necessarily, NAIA schools like ourselves, we either players are available from the ECNL team to whatever other team. So that's why I love the relationship we have. I have a couple players from FKK currently playing for my team. So, yeah.
Coach Phil, I know you have a great relationship with Hugh and Joe in the men's side. So I wanted to hear your input about a little bit, because I know you know them for years, your input about the process. Like, how do you feel the FKK does reaching out to coaches and building that relationship?
Well, I've known Hugh for years, actually. I've had the opportunity to compete against him in club, and then working with different national teams. We've had to speak about several players. So I can just tell you on that front, just knowing him throughout the years, I think he really exhausts himself in doing everything he can to help the players go to the next level, whichever level that may be. It could be college, it could be the U.S. national team, it could be, Jamaica national team or Puerto Rico national team, but he does everything he can to help players move on. And I think that's reflected with his entire club and everything you guys do over there. So in regards to that, I think, he's done a fantastic job, and you guys do a fantastic job with showcasing the talent you have.
How about you, Coach Peyton? I know that we worked together a couple of times, and then we've been trying to get some players to Warner for sure. But you've been in our events, you kind of know some of our stuff. So I would like to hear your opinion about that as well.
Yeah, I've only been down in Florida for a few years now, and so getting to know clubs just takes a little bit of time. And just coming from even a different part of the country, and then kind of rebooting Warner and all that kind of stuff, FKK has been really helpful. One, because they're not shy. You guys aren't shy about showcasing players, about showcasing events. And, you yourself and then a couple other coaches, they respond at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. So you guys service your players really, really well, and you guys work coaching hours and make the sacrifices that honestly help your players out. So I'm sure that they notice that too. But yeah, I think the events that we've worked together, they've been really good. And the most important thing is, as a college coach, I get honest feedback, and I think that's important for your players too. And they get honestly looked at, and it's not just talked up or talked down, but their strengths are definitely showcased.
Well, thank you so much. I wanted to know your opinions, and I think we try to put the club in the right direction. Let's talk a little bit about NAIA and what is the difference between NAIA and NCAA, right? The Division twos, Division threes, Division ones. Coach Phil, you have a ton of experience in this environment of soccer. Can you give me a little bit of maybe your main points? What do you think are the main difference between NAIA and what will be beneficial for a player to know?
I think the most beneficial thing for a player to know is this: is that I think there's a huge misconception in regards to level of play. So, for example, just because you get the title D1 or D2 doesn't necessarily mean that it means a higher level of play. You have to look at every school separately. You also have to look at the conference they play in, because there's a difference, in conferences. And for example, my team, which we're an NAIA school, we've beaten a number of D2 teams. And a lot of players would probably consider going to a D2 school before an NAIA school. But the reality of it is, depending on the program, there's plenty of NAIA schools that D2s, D1. There's plenty of JUCO that could really beat some D1. So it doesn't mean level of play. That's what I think the players have to understand. It doesn't mean level of play. And I think that's the main. There's really, the differences are really, when you look at D1, for example, many programs have great, huge facilities. They also have a different number of students. There's some schools with 30 to 60,000 students, where at an NAI or a D2 or a D3, you might have 1,000 students or less, or you might have, you could have anywhere between 800 students at camp, 12,000 students. So every school, and I just think it depends. You really got to consider experience that you're. So to me, I just think the biggest misconception is level of play. People think that D1 higher level of play, when in fact it doesn't always mean that. There's plenty of D2s, NAI, JUCOs, and even D3 schools that can compete with anyone. So there's my.
That's a great answer. I think it's always have something to say. We were talking about JUCOs a few days ago, and a lot of people has a lot of misconception about JUCOs as well. And the quality of play in JUCO is huge. Some of you guys actually recruit from JUCO. So
Absolutely.
Let's talk about scholarships. Coach Prince, why don't you talk to us about maybe a little bit of the difference between the scholarships that will be in an NAIA level versus the scholarships that will be in a D2, D3, D1 level?
I think it all varies, right? So some NAIA schools work on average systems. Some NAIA schools have a lot of amount, and the schools that are in average systems, pretty much you can say they always have some sort of scholarship to offer someone. So in terms of, it varies in scholarship. In Division II, they allotted a certain amount of scholarships. So once it runs out, you cannot attend that school, or you have to go on as a walk-on. Some NAIA schools, like, there's always money available. It mightn't be a lot, but at least there's scholarship money available. So that's probably the major difference in scholarships. In fact, I think the fully funded NAIA school is more than a fully funded Division II school. If I'm not mistaken, Coach Phil will probably have a better idea in that. I don't know about the women, but I know in the men for sure. A fully funded NAIA school has more money than a fully funded D2 school.
So the resources are obviously a little bit better than an NAIA school. Coach Patton, why don't you talk to us about the recruiting process? What is the difference between a recruiting process for a player that wants to play a D2 versus D2, D1, D3 versus a NAIA? What are the benefits of that recruiting process?
Yeah, probably one of the biggest talking points is when you can actually talk and have face contact and phone contact with a coach. For NAIA schools, that can start pretty much as early as you want. Us, and I'm sure Johnson Wales, Bruton Parker, several other NAIs, when you start recruiting as freshmen, as sophomores, your recruiting list starts then. You can have them on campus. Once you get to like D1s, they have a certain periods, certain dead periods that they are allowed to talk. And once you get to a certain age, you can then chat with them and those kind of things. So that period doesn't start your freshman, sophomore year. Same as when you get to, D2, D3, there are certain periods when you're allowed to talk to players and those kind of things. And that it also transfers into your actual experience and what your training is allowed to be like in your coach contacts while you're at the school as well. It's a little bit different too.
Okay, Coach Phil, does it work the same way in the men's side? I mean, I know a little bit more about the women's side, but does it work the same in the men's side?
No, I don't think so. I think on the women's side, everyone's recruiting a lot earlier. Like even at my school, our women's coach, Eric, he's really in tune with who the freshman class is, who the sophomore, he knows a few years away, where we can have an idea, but we don't really need to, just because we deal with a lot of transfers, deal with a lot of international players, and naturally a lot of, our local players that are at the highest level, they want to play at an NCAA D1. And so sometimes what happens is they wait for that. And then we hit like February of their senior year. And they're like, okay, well, that's when I give them my card. I say, hey, listen, I've been watching you for a while. I'd love to have you on campus. I'd love for us to be an option for you. I know you have other, you're looking at other schools, but then they'll take my card. But then around April or May, I'll get a phone call and they start taking the opportunity a little bit more seriously because they realize, okay, maybe D1's not going to happen. So that's that situation. So with the guys, it's really late actually with the guys. Guys procrastinate. That
is true.
A little different
Yes.
than the girls do. But it's okay. We adjust well, and so we're really looking at seniors for the most part. I mean, we take a look at the younger ones, but our focus is really on the senior class.
Okay, so let's talk about the situation that we're going through, the coronavirus and the recruiting process. I would like to hear your input about that. So right now, obviously, there's a lot of downtime. We don't have, field time. What do you encourage our players to do? Should they reach out to you via email? Should they schedule a phone call with you if they're interested in NAIA school? Could you give us a little bit of input on that? Coach Payton, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, sure. Same as the coaches, the players aren't on the field, so you got a lot more time to be at home. It's a good time to make use of it. So, coaches have, not much better to do than plan and answer recruit emails and recruit calls. So it's really evident. We thought that the recruiting process was going to be a little bit tougher with the coronavirus and that kind of stuff. But for our more serious recruits that are a little bit more responsible, they've done a really good job of being on top of phone calls, emails, applying to the school, those kind of things. So for any of your players, I would suggest to them to really be very responsible and use the time wisely and contact as many coaches and really stay in contact with your top-notch coaches and schools that you want to go to. So it's a great opportunity to do it. They're less busy than they were, and it's up to players to kind of fill up their time as much as they can.
Coach Prince, are you going through the same with the recruiting process now with the situation?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for NAIA schools, it's kind of been of like a blessing because I know for me, we have done really well since the shutdown because we are either on the phones or players are more accessible. And I believe the NCAA has kind of shut down, have a kind of like a dead period. So we have to talk to, we don't have that. So we're talking to players and we have done really well. in the past 4 or 5 weeks in terms of reaching and in terms of getting commitments and things like that. So it hasn't really been a setback. Obviously, the biggest setback is able to see some players play and the ones who are trying to, you know, put more film together and stuff like that. But at the same time, um, it's been great for us on this end, just like Peyton said.
So, Coach Phil, let's talk about some questions that we have received this week about NAIA schools. This one's going to be tough a little bit. What does it take for a player to be recruited?
Well, I think number one, they've got to be a really good player and a good athlete, you know, and I think that's first and foremost. And I'd say at the NAIA level on the men's side, you've got a lot of internationals in the league in every conference and a lot of older. So you're really playing against men right away. So if you're a freshman that's 17, 18, 19 years old, you're going to be playing against guys that are 24 and 25 years old, some even older. So I think the physical piece is important. And then, you know, I think we have a lot of very technical players in the NAI. So we look at all that stuff. So, but at the end of the day, you got to get yourself on the map or on the radar of that school. And, you know, the way to do that is the email, get your club coaches to call, get yourself in front of that coach, however you have to. And I think right now with the coronavirus, videos are very helpful, you know? So yeah.
Coach Prince, this is a tough one too. How do I know what division I can play at? I'm a player, I'm looking for some opportunities. How would I decide what division I can play at? I think I picked the right coach to answer this question.
Well, I mean, it depends on what coaches are reaching out to you. It'll be very obvious, and the assessment from your club coaches. Hopefully, your club coaches will be honest with you, and I think you will know what division you're going to play at by who's reaching out to you. If Duke or North Carolina is reaching out to you, you play in Division One, of course. If junior colleges are reaching out to you, you're playing in that aspect. Also, it comes down to your grades. If you can't meet certain SAT, ACT scores, you're playing certain divisions. At least the first couple of years, probably might have to go play junior college. You might end up going to some NAIA schools that don't necessarily have a lot of very high ACT scores to get in. So grades and who's reaching out to you.
So, Coach Phil, does it work the same for the men's side?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things after Prince mentioned it, I regretted not saying is, you know, we're looking for good athletes, but good students. I mean, my whole team has, I want to say, over a 3.2 right now. So our team is doing well in the classroom and on the field. So for me, that's a very important piece, and it demonstrates responsibility. So, and at Johnson & Wales, your GPA, like how you graduate, however the higher your GPA is, the more money that you're available to get, because we offer a lot of academic scholarships at our school. So to me, that's a very important factor.
Okay. So that's important. I think that's important to point out the fact that, you know, if you're a good student, then obviously in a coach's perspective, that's a cheaper recruit. Am I correct? Do you all agree with that? Right? If they're good students, it will be cheaper for you guys to invest the money on them because they're going to get a whole lot of academic scholarship. So, Coach Peyton, how about this one? Do I have to be ECNL player to be recruited in college?
Easiest answer is most definitely not. And I think that's, I think it might have been the first question that you asked about what FKK do well. I think that's for players. One thing that you want to look at is can you get in front of people? Can you get in front of coaches? Does your club coach help you and that kind of stuff? So No, is the simple answer. Every school from top schools to, smaller schools, big schools, what team you play on, playing on an ECNL team or not can sometimes just depend on the size of the club. So it can differ per club, how good an ECNL team is. But there are plenty of players. We have a large amount of our players are not ECNL players, but they are very technically gifted. They have good training. They're very responsible. They're great in the classroom. It's a plus and it's a great title to have, but it's nowhere near, a necessity. So most coaches, I think I can speak for these two, we don't necessarily just evaluate a name or something like that. We make sure that we evaluate each individual.
Coach Phil, does it work the same way in the men's side? Do you need to be an ECNL player to be recruited?
We have recruited from, we don't care. We don't care what league. At the end of the day, if they can play, they can play. I mean, we've literally taken a guy from a pickup game. We've gotten players from high school. We've gotten players from local leagues, adult leagues, internationals, you name it. We've recruited there. So ECNL, it doesn't matter. Just another league.
Okay. Coach Prince, are you only looking for ECNL players when you recruit? I know it's kind of like the same question, but these are questions that we receive every week, and I want to make sure I put them out for everybody.
No, absolutely not. I used to coach on the guys' side, and like Coach Phil said, I went to play pickup soccer one day, and I saw a player, and he was 25 at the time, and he was looking to play college soccer, and I gave him the opportunity. So, we look for, of course, you look for talent first, but at the end of the day, find players from anywhere. You can find quality players. So no, you don't have to be a player.
Okay, last questions, and then I'll pretty much give you guys the rest of the night. Coach Phil, could you give us one single tip or at least one piece of advice for our players that are looking to play in college and they are not at the level of D1, D2, maybe D3, but they're looking for the next option, and NAIA being one of those options? What tip would you give to our players?
Well, I mean, I would tell you to keep working, continue, because a lot of times players have this perception that because they didn't make it there, that it's going to be easy somewhere. But they have to understand that the college game at every level is a global game, and players from all over the world want that opportunity. So keep working their tails off, keep working hard in the classroom. And really, I can't stress enough the importance of the grades. So I would say make sure your grades are high, and then just get on that coach's radar. Send him emails, call him, do whatever you have to do to get on his radar. And that's it.
Coach Payton?
I'm not sure what else I can say other than that. But no, I think you see it on a lot of resumes for professionals and that kind of stuff. But you have to be a go-getter. The days of playing for a club and getting spotted, randomly your junior year and without doing any work yourself, those days are over. There's just too much communication. The world is much smaller now, and just like Coach Phil talked about, we talk to people from every country on the planet, every state in the U.S. So it's up to a player to have a little bit of that go-getter in them, in him or her, and make sure that they put themselves out there.
Coach Prince?
I guess you have to evaluate what you really want to do. If you want to play soccer, you have to do what those two guys just said. You have to go out and send emails and do research. You know exactly where you want to be. I'm privileged. I actually played in the NAIA, and I wanted to stay in Florida, so I sent every Florida school a message. NAIA school gave me an opportunity to try out. So that's how it works. You just have to go get what you want. So.
Well, I cannot thank you guys enough for your time. This has been great. I think players need to hear more about the NAIAs, the JUCOs, because I think there's a little stigma behind that. And I think this conversation is kind of giving our players the opportunity to see a little bit bigger than that. So I thank you guys individually. I thank you guys for joining us. Please, guys, continue to send your questions. Our chapter 6 will be the Tuesday ones, and we're gonna ask the questions that you send me. So continue to send me those, and then we'll see you in the next one. Stay safe.